there. It's great.
Okay, I'm going to start then. Hopefully my screen will allow me to, if it kicks me off, Donald's going to fill in for me.
I'm okay if we wait another 30 seconds or so. People sometimes straggle.
Sure.
I love that photo by Derek.
Yeah,
I know.
That's just
He's
a classic.
Yeah.
Do you know
He
what
has some
sanctuary, what sanctuary he was at when he took that?
It says farm sanctuary on the, but I don't know where
Okay.
at the sanctuary. Yeah, I know his photographs are beautiful. That's a really stunning.
It's kombucha. Janelle, what do you have there?
Peppermint.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Just in case I have like a cough attack, which sometimes I get when I get nervous.
Okay, I have kombucha and I have my water, so I'm ready.
I double fisted. I have water too.
All right, I'm gonna get rocking, so people will jump in. Welcome to Compassion Arts Festival 2020, an annual event of Compassion Arts that serves as a platform for sharing the ways that creativity can be used as an instrument for cultivating compassion for animals and the earth we share. My name is Ellie Sardi. I'm the project's founder and director, and I'm just going to say a few words before we start. Also, welcome to Women Artists for Animals Roundtable discussion. Due to the current pandemic, our festival is online this year, and you can learn all about it at compassionartsfestival.org, with categories in music, visual arts, poetry, sanctuaries, information on holistic nonviolence and compassionate living, which you can see in videos, writings, workshops, an online exhibit by Jane O'Hara, as well as a series of virtual events. Our first event, virtual event, was yesterday, Sunday, with Kathy Stevens at Catskill Animal Sanctuary. And tonight is the second of our 9-day series. Our program this evening is Women Artists for Animals, a roundtable discussion on seeing animals more deeply through the arts, featuring presentations by photojournalist Jo-Anne McArthur, artist and curator Jane O'Hara, artist and curator Janell O'Rourke from Art Animal Effect, and our moderator, Carolyn Mullin. Not seen here is Compassion Arts colleague and co-host Donald Vincent, who's handling all the tech aspects of this event. And I just want to share that Donald is an amazing poet with a new book called Convenient Amnesia. And he has an event this coming Thursday with poet Gretchen Premack, which will be Thursday night. So if you log on to the website, you can learn all about that. That said, I'd like to introduce, because we have a lot of ground to cover, I'd like to introduce you to our moderator for the evening, Carolyn Mullin. Carolyn is best known for her work as the founder of the Animal Museum in Los Angeles, the world's first museum dedicated to exploring the human-animal bond with a dual focus on animal protection and human-animal studies. A dedicated animal advocate, Carolyn has overseen or been involved with numerous projects for helping animals and raising awareness, both through the arts and through her extensive work in animal protection. Currently with the Oxnard Performing Arts and Convention Center, she has been involved with the Miami Science Museum, the Chico Museum, Casa Dolores, and the Miami Children's Museum. Her work has been featured in the Los Angeles and New York Times, Washington Post, Chicago Tribune, NPR, LA Weekly, Huffington Post, and dozens of other media outlets. She is also a contributing author to several books, including The Art of the Animal and Mourning Animals. And she is a board member for My Dog Is My Home, a national organization striving to keep individuals experiencing homelessness and their pets together. And Carolyn, I'm going to turn it over to you. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Ellie. Thank you, everyone, for being here tonight. It's great to see some familiar faces on the attendee list, and it's a true honor to be here with all of our panelists. It's like a reunion. It's the best feeling in the world. That being said, I do want to go into just a really brief reminder. This is a webinar format, so we will have a chat box or like a Q&A ability. So towards the end of tonight's format, you will be able to chime in if you have any questions for the panelists. What we're going to do is spend the first hour and each presenter will have about 10 minutes to talk about their work. And then we'll open it up to a roundtable discussion and do Q&A with public comments. So that's kind of the format. So stay tuned. First up, we have Jane O'Hara. Jane is an artist and curator exploring our complex relationship with animals through visual narratives that reveal how the animal condition poses a duality. O'Hara has mounted solo exhibitions of her artwork at numerous galleries and is a Courage of Conscience Award honoree from the Peace Abbey Foundation. A Culture and Animals Foundation grant recipient alumni, she is also curator of the Beasts of Burden Group Exhibit Project and author of its gallery book by the same name. Jane O'Hara has been an integral part of Compassion Arts since 2015, both as an artist, collaborator, and speaker, giving presentations at Worcester Art Museum, I probably butchered that, I'm sorry, Symphony Space, Pace University, and Boston Veg Fest, among others, and in creating individualized paintings each year for the Artist for Ahimsa Award, which is given to honorees for their work in the arts for animal advocacy. Jane will be focusing her roundtable talk on the story of how her artistry and animal advocacy came to be, and on the paintings in her online exhibit, Forget Me Not, for Compassion Arts Festival this year, which through its compositions help us to celebrate the beauty of animals and not forget the animals behind the scenes. And with that, I'll pass it on to Jane.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be joining this roundtable. The title of this roundtable is the heart of what I attempt to do with my artwork, see animals more deeply through the arts. And I hope to share what I see with you. I didn't have much hands-on experience with animals growing up, except of course, my best friend Cinders and then Sammy. I hated the zoo, I hated the circus. What they made the animals do made me sad, but I didn't think about it too much, to be honest. It was just the way it was, just like my diet of lamb chops, grilled cheese, and hamburgers. It was just the way it was. So when I started adding animals to my paintings, after my art education, it was an unprocessed idea. I thought animals were cute, funny, beautiful, but it was the act of painting them, I think, that sensitized me to the reality of their lives. When I painted them, I'd fall in love with them. Through contact with animal sanctuaries and animal orgs, I learned what goes on behind the scenes with most animals, the ones that aren't our companions. It's so horrifying. It started to affect what I was painting. A turning point was the painting Sacrifice I did. I'd attended the Byzantium exhibition at the Metropolitan Museum of Art and got the idea for representing the animals as saints who had sacrificed their lives to higher powers. But in their case, corporations, universities, the circus, in their case, not a choice. This painting is of Amelia, this next painting, and where I'm celebrating Amelia's beauty and newfound bliss. She lives now at Gentle Barns Sanctuary in California, rescued from living a life of abuse and neglect. The next painting is Birthday Girl. I'm so interested and disturbed by the separate yet unequal lives that animals experience. Here, this pup is living the life. No doubt treats galore are in its store for this lucky lab. Perhaps in payment for the humiliation of having to wear a birthday hat. Next, I've painted the 3 sirens. They seem to be a bit concerned about their next treats. Many paintings I use for my paintings are from friends' posts on Facebook and Instagram, my own random shots, or from volunteers at sanctuaries. In fact, I don't know, you probably can't see it, but in my backdrop here above my head is from my painting The Rabbit Hole in the Bubble, The Rabbit at the Butcher, which is an image I got from our fellow panelist, Jo-Anne McArthur. Several years ago, I curated and exhibited in Beasts of Burden. first in Boston, then in New York City, as a pop-up exhibition along with the Compassion Arts Festival, which was produced with Culture and Animals Foundation that year. Artists of Beasts of Burden work to create artworks that include animals from their own perspectives. As a group, we consider our complex connections to these animals, how they're completely entwined into our lives and psyches. I'm looking for the next venue for Beasts of Burden. Maybe it'll be a virtual exhibition. Here are some of the new women artists joining Beasts of Burden. As the New York Times review of Sue Ko, Graphic Resistance at MoMA PS1 says, she has repeatedly embedded herself like a war reporter inside factories and brought out horrifying frontline images. Some imagined from a dying animal's perspective. This Sue Ko piece is called It's a Picnic, and you can see her piercing commentary. Here, the unconscious picnickers are oblivious to the enslaved animals just over the fence. This next photograph, let's skip to, I wonder there's missing one. Anyway, another woman artist new to Beasts of Burden is Cynthia Minette. This sculpture is called Dog Sled, illuminating recycled plastics with LED lights. Cynthia Minette makes an environmental statement as well as celebrating these animals. And the next photograph, there it is from Sophie Gamon's Pitbull Flower Power series. She takes the most hated dog of the day and dresses them up and challenges our perceptions of these misunderstood dogs and gets them adopted. The Forget Me Not exhibition I put together for this festival features artwork I've created that asks us in different ways to remember our fellow animals who don't happen to be the lucky ones. I have 11 paintings with text on what I'd like you to know about them. This next image, Back to the Future, one of the paintings in the show. Go to the next one, Donald. There it is, thanks. On the left, baby calves taken from their mothers day one, living in seclusion so that we can have their milk. On the right, magically brought from the past and into the future where they can nuzzle with their mothers once again. The next painting here is New Order. I was reading early in the pandemic how animals were showing up where normally they would never, with the usual cars and people and activity. Taken from the news, these pictures told of animals strolling the streets and neighborhoods. I put them all together in this painting, while the human animals are in a new reality, confined and looking out. I'm working on a series called State of the Union. This painting is California, State of the Union. There will be 51 paintings, all states and Washington, D.C. I have a scheduled exhibition at the New Bedford Art Museum in Massachusetts in 2023. I use images in the background that promote and celebrate that state. Here there's Minnie Mouse from Disneyland. The state animal is the brown bear, the seal, palm trees, but in bubbles, things not so nice in that state. SeaWorld, where a killer whale lives its life in the relative size of a bathtub. Many have died early deaths, and this dangerous, unnatural environment has led to workers' deaths as well. 2 activists getting arrested for trying to save downed calves. These barely living, discarded waste of the dairy industry. The attempted rescue failed due to the arrests. Infant monkeys poisoned to death at UC Davis. A cruel escape from a life of getting tested on. The fires and all the animals that die trying to escape. The casualties of horse racing at Santa Anita Park, 37 in 2019. And the young pigs in transport trucks on the way to slaughter, dehydrated from the long trip where they're given no food or water, never having experienced a minute of tenderness, all under the mocking murals of Farmer John's slaughterhouse. This next painting is Minnesota State of the Union. In the background, state animals, wolf and deer next to a bubble where the deer is the object of a canned hunt, where hunters pay big bucks to kill a buck. In an enclosed area, someone's trophy. The small town of Cormorant elected this dog 3 times as mayor. Must have been a good job. Peanuts is Charles Schultz, Prince, Mary Tyler Moore, Bob Dylan, all from Minnesota. But in Bubbles, I've shown how University of Minnesota has 60 animal violations on top of the cruelty of their usual animal experimentation. Another bubble, an industrial farm with thousands of pigs. These confined pigs pollute the waterways with feces and urine, polluting waters, turning them a sickly red. Shrine Circus is still using wild animals in their acts. These elephants torn from their mothers while young, beaten and chained to force them to go against their nature to balance on a small stool. And this company Bio selling animals for experimentation. And since cats and dogs are acquired from pounds or found as strays in some cases, a board of collars was found at this facility. I use the bubbles as a way to express the simultaneous yet vastly different experiences that animals have. This painting I call The Commute. I had the amazing fortune to go to Pakistan last year, and the monkeys were all over in this tiny town of Nadia Gali in the foothills of the Himalayas. This mother and baby crossed the road very intently. I watched the baby crawl during the crossing from under the belly onto the back of its mother. My main motivation with my work is to show these animals as individuals and to expose the hypocrisy rooted with our pampered pets versus invisible animals in food production, animal testing, fashion, entertainment. I'll use humor and irony to show how we're being duped into thinking there are degrees of sentience in animals. Or I'll straight up celebrate their awesomeness in my paintings. On this painting listening, I have my website and social media links. On my website, you can find the link to my art where you can see my other artworks and the State of the Union paintings I've completed. On the O'Hara Projects part of the website, you can see my Beasts of Burden exhibition page, a short video of the pop-up show and presentation I gave in New York City, as well as the current artists in the next show. My book, Beasts of Burden, the result of a generous grant from Culture and Animals Foundation, catalogs the second Beasts of Burden exhibition in New York City with its fabulous artists. I like to give back by donating paintings for fundraisers, painting gifts for those who are on the front lines doing so much for animals. And a special honor has been to be able to create the paintings for the Compassion Arts Ahimsa Award honorees. After these next amazing women share their work, I'll present Jo-Anne McArthur with her Ahimsa Award painting from last year. On compassionartsfestival.org, you can read about the 2020 Ahimsa Award going to Cyrus Mejia. So thank you for tuning in. I'll see you later during the discussion.
Thank you so much, Jane. All right, next we have Janell O'Rourke. Janell is a visual artist working in the language of drawing, painting, object making, contemporary silhouettes, photography, and stop motion vignettes to explore the questions and prejudices that objectify other animals and our relationships with them. The mission of her work is to use her artistry towards establishing a new ethic in how we view animals, both in society and in art. Her artwork has been exhibited in numerous galleries and museums in New York and across the country, and is also featured in the Art of the Animal and other publications. O'Rourke is a co-founder and member of Art Animal Effect, a coalition of artists working to bridge art with activism, co-founded with artists Catherine Eddy and L.A. Watson. Art Animal Effect is dedicated to using the visual arts for examining prevailing concepts about human-animal relationships and for offering alternative narratives rooted in empathy and hope for the future. Janell will be focusing her roundtable talk on the work of Art Animal Effect and their projects, My Body is Mine by O'Rourke, Roadside Memorial Project by L.A. Watson, and Urban Wild Coyote Project by Catherine Eddy. Janell?
Thank you, Catherine. Carolyn, thank you so much. Good evening, everyone. And my name is Janell. I'm here to introduce you to Art Animal Affect, or AAA as we like to call it. We are a coalition of 3 interdisciplinary artists, Catherine Eddy, L.A. Watson, and myself. We are dedicated to bridging art and activism within the field of critical animal studies. We utilized a post-humanist, eco-feminist approach to art making that recognizes non-human animal subjectivity and values diverse and non-hierarchical modes of being in the world. AAA aims to create an open-ended dialogue that questions the social construct of the human through the production of object-based encounters and social exchange. Using multimedia such as video, installation, sound, photography, sculpture, drawing, and painting, we investigate prevailing concepts about human-animal relationships and offer alternative narratives rooted in a non-anthropocentric vision of the future. So for this presentation, I'll be introducing 3 separate ongoing projects from each of us, and I'll start with mine. Slide 1. My Body is Mine is an eco-feminist protest that aligns feminism with animal defense. The message, My Body is Mine, is carved into a woodcut of a non-human animal other silhouette. Woodcuts have a long history as a medium of social protest and anarchy, so in using this format, I'm keeping the tradition of resistance going. My first woodcut was pasted on an abandoned abattoir wall in Brooklyn, where great numbers of animals were slaughtered around the turn of the 20th century. Slide 2, please. Since then, I've come to the idea that these woodcuts should be pasted on or near the present day live poultry slaughterhouses that exist around my neighborhood and further out in Queens. I do it as a way of bearing witness to their anonymous suffering and death. According to the New York Farm Animal Save, there are over 80 live animal businesses in New York City, 5 boroughs area. Slide 3, please. Walk through the door of a live poultry business and the stench of the slaughterhouse is assaulting. Rows of filthy cages stacked on top of each other line all sides of the walls. When a customer wants to purchase an animal, a man in a long plastic apron and rubber boots grabs the frightened animal out of the cage to the alarm of her cage mates and carries her upside down by her feet or hind legs while she thrashes and cries out. She's bound, weighed, and killed within minutes. The customer is handed a plastic shopping bag that contains a warm, dead body. My Body is Mine has grown from historically sad and forgotten place to one that I feel viscerally. Their voices are clearly heard as I pace. I ponder the question posed by a fellow artist and friend, what makes for a grievable life? Slide 4. Each time I paste a woodcut on an outside wall, I take a picture, but within days, the woodcut has been shredded off. Next slide. The Roadside Memorial Project by L.A. Watson is an ongoing site-specific installation of reflective road signs that function as a memorial for animals killed on the road, as well as a new kind of warning sign for drivers. The silhouettes of animals commonly killed on Kentucky roads are staggered on the ground, some at the edge of the road, others just beyond. Next slide. Unlike standard road signs, these signs are positioned so that they sit low on the ground. The hope is to shift the driver's gaze from looking up towards the signs that are situated at the height of human body to looking down towards signs that are situated at the height of non-human animal bodies towards the edges of the road where wildlife is most likely to appear. These signs also highlight the diversity of animals killed on Kentucky roads, honoring small-bodied animals like chipmunks and possums. Okay, so I'll carry.
Great picture.
The most reflective color, but because it references the innocent sacrifice.
So it sounds like we're having some sound issues. Ellie, how do you want to handle?
Donald, are you there?
Spirits and ghostly specters.
Oh, she
The
can hear.
installation comes.
Let me text him. How'd she do?
Yeah, I think the connection issue might be on Janell's and Ellie.
Okay. Should we move on and come back to Janelle?
I don't know what to do.
Are you there, Janelle?
Maybe,
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
maybe Janelle can.
Power through?
I'm here. I don't know. I can see everyone.
Okay.
Okay,
It's
let's keep going then.
Can you see me?
I think we
Can you hear
missed
me?
we missed about a minute or two. Maybe like one slide back.
All right, so, okay. Okay, so did you hear this part? Unlike standard road signs, the signs are positioned so that they sit low on the ground.
Yes, up until
Yes.
about then.
The hope is to shift the driver's gaze from looking up towards signs that are situated at the height of the human body to looking down towards signs that are situated at the height of the non-human animal's body and towards the edges of the road where wildlife is most likely to appear. These signs also highlight the diversity of animals killed on Kentucky roads, honoring small-bodied animals like chipmunks and possums who are not represented in typical road signs created to protect human drivers from large-bodied animals such as deer. Next slide. Each double-sided sign is covered in a white reflective sign material that can be seen by drivers coming from either direction. The color white was chosen not only because of its most highly reflective color, but because it references the iconography of human roadside memorial crosses and denotes innocence, sacrifice, spirits, and ghostly specters. The installation comes to life at night and is turned on by passing drivers who illuminate it, many of whom slow down. The number one way to reduce wildlife mortality is to reduce driver speed. So this was an unexpected and pleasing outcome of the project. Next slide. Finally, the photographic documentation of the project is illuminated in light boxes, which carry the theme of light from the road into the gallery to reach new audiences that might not otherwise be able to learn about and interact with the project. Next slide. Catherine Eddy's Urban Wild Coyote Project is an art installation that was on exhibition earlier in the year for animals across discipline, time, and space at McMaster Museum of Art in Hamilton, Ontario. Coyotes are indigenous to North America. Displaced from their home ranges by expanding human populations, coyotes have learned to thrive in cities and suburbs weaving their territories across backyards and parks, bridges, and highways, hiding in plain sight. Human hunters kill 500,000 of these sensitive, intelligent animals each year for sport, out of unwarranted fear, and because coyote fur is a fashionable trimming for luxury products such as goose down coats. Next slide. Next, Catherine Eddy's Urban Wild Coyote Project is an immersive multimedia collage that asks visitors to wonder how humans can learn to coexist with non-human others. In a cozy living room setting, coyotes infiltrate familiar objects. Their images pasted, painted, drawn, and sewn into wallpapers, drink coasters, embroidered samples, and other decorations. Next slide. Using the remote control units on a coffee table, visitors can activate the sonic decoys on the pedestals. These commercially available machines come pre-packaged with recordings of living coyotes and the screams of dying and distressed deer, rabbit, and other animals. The idea being for the sounds to lure curious or hungry coyotes into steel traps or within rifle range. Meanwhile, from loudspeakers around the room, TV actors' pre-recorded voices playing serial killers lure human victims to their deaths. Next slide. Beneath the chandelier, which is made of 8 steel traps welded together, rendered useless for their cruel purpose, Eddy's juxtaposition of sounds, images, and objects consider the relationship between hunters and serial killers, whose victims are eagerly commodified by fascinated popular cultures. So to conclude, each of our projects are situated in its contextual space, whether it's the urban, rural, or suburban landscapes. Each of our projects relate to one another as memorials to the lives lost within human-centric structures that reduce other beings to objects such as food units, livestock, trash, vermin, or roadkill, to name a few. There is an intentionality within our work that seeks to engage with the viewer-listener on multiple levels, whether the viewer gets it or not. Our work involves an attentiveness and will not allow the art to slip into the ease of sentimentality. Our coalition is dedicated to recognizing the subjectivity of other animals with whom we share this planet, and we strive to make work that encourages others to rethink their relationships with other animals and the earth. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Janell. I was trying to say hi to Martin in the chat and I realized that went to everyone. So hi everyone again. Fun times with Zoom. All right, next up, we have Jo-Anne McArthur. She is an award-winning photojournalist, sought-after speaker, and the founder of We Animals Media. She has been documenting the plight of animals on all 7 continents for almost 2 decades. She is the author of 2 books, We Animals and Captive, and was the subject of Canadian filmmaker Liz Marshall's acclaimed documentary, The Ghost in Our Machine. Jo-Anne is based in Toronto, Canada, and travels many months each year to document and share the stories of animals worldwide. Jo-Anne will be focusing her talk at the Roundtable on animal photojournalism, an emergent genre of photography that captures, memorializes, and exposes the experiences of animals who live amongst us, but who we fail to see. More photographers are undertaking this type of work, and it is gaining acceptance and credibility in the media and is contributing heavily to the evolving conversation about animal use and ethics. Importantly, it is also contributing to animal advocacy campaigns and legislative change. During this roundtable, Jo-Anne discusses animal photojournalism and shares images and stories from almost 20 years in the field and why she's hopeful for the future. Jo-Anne?
Hi, thank you. It is just gorgeous to be here with you all, you talented, wonderful people. Ellie, thank you so much for inviting me to be here and to talk about my work and to talk about animal photojournalism. I'm going to share my screen, and if there's any internet connection, please give me a shout and I will pause. Yeah. Okay, let's see. Looks like I need permission to share because someone else is sharing right now. Okay, let's try again. Here we go. There we go. Okay, how's that look? Everyone can see my slides? Good. Okay, well, the title, Seeing Animals More Deeply Through the Arts, which is what we're discussing here, and I will focus specifically on animal photojournalism. That is my domain, which started a long time ago for me. This is one of the initial images that I caught of what I now call animal photojournalism. I didn't call it then. I was in Ecuador in 1998, and I saw this monkey who was chained up. And I was taking this image along with lots of other people taking the same image who were laughing and having a good time at the monkey's expense. But I was taking the picture because I thought that perhaps I could do something with this image because I saw this as a real problem. I was upset by this. And I realized that the way I saw animals was different than other people. And I had this tool, this fabulous tool, a camera that I could use to help educate people and hopefully change the world and change the situations for animals. And so since that time, the camera has been a tool for change for me. This is a cow inside of a truck going to slaughter, reaching for trees just beyond the truck. I pair this image with a quote from Brent Sturton, who was a conservation photographer, a really brilliant photographer, who says, and I agree, photography is a weapon against what's wrong out there. It's bearing witness to the truth. As with many of my fellow panelists, we are trying to illuminate the lives of hidden animals. These are the animals we have a very close relationship with, and yet we fail to see. We are quite familiar with looking at the charismatic animals and our companion animals, but there are billions of others who are so simply not represented. And that's actually one of the great things about this emerging genre, animal photojournalism, is that it includes all animals, which is different from conservation photography, portrait photography. And I'll give you an example of some of these animals. They are the animals we eat, the animals we wear, the working animals, animals used in religious sacrifice, animals used in research, like Ron. If you can imagine someone his size, he was kept in a 5 foot by 5 foot by 7 foot cage suspended above the floor for almost 30 years before he was rescued. And I took this photo of him after he was rescued. This is at Save the Chimps. And he felt happiest and most comfortable indoors, where he would make himself a nest of blankets every single day. And that's where I took this image of him. And lastly, the hidden animals, sometimes they're in plain view, like Kiska. She was wild caught off the coast of Iceland in 1979. And it's so interesting to see us and how we interact with these animals and how we fail to see these sentient, interesting, important animals who are right in front of us because we're so interested in our own experience around them and our fun. It takes her about a minute to circumnavigate this tank. And she's been there a long time alone, ironically in Friendship Cove. So who should have to look at these unpleasant images? Well, political activist and writer Susan Sontag wrote a whole book about this. It's called Regarding the Suffering of Others, Regarding the Pain of Others. And you don't have to read the book, because what she comes down to is anyone who can help should be looking at images of suffering. And when it comes to animals, that's all of us. We all have a duty to look and to see and to not turn away. And what we're seeing in in the world, in media, with animals, in the art world, in the photography world, is so often the surface of things, isn't it? So this is another example of an image someone might take while they're sitting in the audience at a circus, but there's so much more going on. There's so much more that we have to pay attention to for the animals. And that's what photojournalism really is about. So this is Luke performing, but this is Luke behind the scenes, chained up, swaying back and forth. And I find it so interesting that there are those three women with their babies in the background, literally ignoring the elephant in the room. This kind of use of animals just absolutely drives me crazy. And in art and the media, I mean, I don't know. Well, I mean, there's a lot to say about this. It's absolutely infuriating to me how it objectifies and just ingrains this idea that they are for our entertainment and our use. So what animal photojournalism is the opposite of that. And in fact, I think that images like this on the top left, you know, just help lead to stories and problems like this. This is a photograph by Adam Oswald. He's one of the 40 photojournalists who are contributing to my new book. It's called Hidden, which I have here. Today is actually the launch day. It is a 5-pound, 320-page, 40 contributors look at what is and what should never again be about the hidden animals, the animals in the Anthropocene. We've heard that word already today, and the Anthropocene is the proposed name for the current geologic epoch. And this is an era where no animal can escape our influence. Okay, this is the book. And oh, I know what I wanted to say. On my website, We Animals Media, we wanted to help define animal photojournalism and encourage people to take this up. It's an important, newsy, relevant, timely kind of photography. And so we have an essay on that, but the last few sentences says this about animal photojournalism. It's groundbreaking for two reasons. First, images in this genre demand radical empathy and self-awareness. Viewers must decenter themselves and consider the world through the eyes of a different species, while holding the truth of humanity's undeniable role in the story. Additionally, it poses a fundamental threat to deeply embedded societal systems that continue largely unchallenged. And that's what our work does. It challenges beliefs that we can treat animals like this. Luckily, though, animal photojournalism also tells the stories of change and hope and love and progress. This is a sanctuary image of Susie with Jay. And Jay was one of the lone survivors from a transport truck that had toppled and caught fire. And he went on to live at Farm Sanctuary and have a beautiful life there. And these are cotton-top tamarins. They live at Jungle Friends Sanctuary, and they are among the world's smallest primates. And I just love this picture because it looks like they were caught in the act. So they've arrived from research to Sanctuary, and they are just starting to explore the farther realms of their home through the trees. So I do think that the future is getting brighter for animals. I am totally aware that things are also getting worse, but they are also getting brighter. These things are happening simultaneously, but more and more people are becoming aware of animal sentience and why we need to protect them. And I love that my job, in part, gets to contribute to that growing awareness. So we all know, for example, that there's a plant-based revolution happening. Everyone is eating more plant-based, including Prince here, eating his celery. And we know that, plant-based foods no longer is like, rice and beans. It looks like this. And we're also speaking up to our political representatives worldwide. We are seeing more and more parties worldwide incorporating pro-animal initiatives into their policies. So it's really nice when I get to document things like this as well. We're going to see an end to puppy mills. We're going to see an end to a lot of industries in the coming years. I'm really excited about that. This is a puppy mill confiscation. That place closed down, 110 dogs were rescued. We're seeing a continued expansion of sanctuary, rescue, and compassionate conservation efforts, moving away from zoos and aquaria. We're seeing an end to bear bile farming, which is now illegal in Vietnam and in 20 Chinese provinces. And this is an image of a closed down fur farm. This housed mink and foxes. Sorry, I'm just going to close my door. Sorry, buddy. I've got friends and family arriving home. This is an image of, a farm that is no longer. So because of the investigative work that we did here at the farm, we were able to give this dossier of work to the SPCA. They were able to get a warrant to investigate this farm and close it down. So we are seeing a lot of change. And in fact, I'm seeing women at the front lines of animal advocacy worldwide. It was fascinating to me that, you know, there were so many women. I thought, oh, am I just biased being a woman? Am I seeing women because I'm a woman? But I did some research and I found out that in fact, in animal advocacy, it's about 60 to 80% women, at least in Europe and North America, who are leading animal advocacy. And yet we often see men in leadership roles. That is changing in recent years, which is fantastic. But I did conceive of this project 5 or 6 years ago now, and co-authored it with Carrie Cronin. And we started, you know, showing the stories of change and progress and the change that women were making. And so I'll share a few of those photos with you. This is one of the women who are the Black Mambas, they're very famous now in South Africa. And so they are an anti-poaching unit, and they also bring humane education programs to schools. This is Marianne Thieme at the center. She's incredible. She's a politician. She, for a long time, was the head of the Party for Animals in Netherlands. And together they banned fur farming. They banned animal acts in circuses. They banned the import of trophy hunts, and their goal is to ban factory farming in their country. There are all sorts of ways that you can help animals, which is also really exciting. And it's also what I love about the Unbound Project, whether you're a youth leader, a veterinarian, a neuroscientist, or a protester. It's pretty exciting that there is so much we can do and are doing to change the world for animals. This is Dr. Theo Capaldo. I absolutely adore her. She was the former president of the New England Anti-Vivisection Society. And this is her with a rescued rat, which I think is just lovely because she spent and spends decades of her life advocating for animals who are being used in research. And I like this quote from her. It really distills it nicely for me about my work and her work and what this is all about. She says, "It's all the same, really. The environment, women, children, civil rights, the animals, it's all about the same thing, compassion and doing what's right for everyone." I'm going to wrap up with a little story. I don't know this chimpanzee's name, but I did meet him at one of the many primate sanctuaries that I've been to. And I was visiting a sanctuary, it's called Fauna Sanctuary in Canada. And there were some chimpanzees there who'd been rescued from behavioral research, and they had learned to sign. They knew sign language. And my friend Carl and I walked up to where the chimps were, and the chimp was looking at us and we were looking at them. And that's so often the relationship we have with animals, is that we stare at one another and we don't have a common language. And so we stare at one another and we wonder things, but incredibly, this chimpanzee could communicate with us in our language. And so he signed to my friend Carl, "Are you drinking coffee?" Carl was holding a cup of coffee. And through the interpreter who translated, we said, "Yes, that's the coffee." And the chimpanzee said, "Can I have that coffee, but with milk?" And it just blew our minds. Like, there's someone in there who's of course, thinking and feeling and wondering and asking questions, but we never get to know that. Additionally, this chimpanzee pointed to Carl's face repeatedly, making the sign for pain, asking, "Are you in pain?" And we wondered what that was about until we realized that the chimpanzee was pointing at Carl's ears. And because he has these big earplugs, the stretched earlobes, the chimpanzee hadn't seen that and was wondering if that was causing him pain. It's just incredible. And I mention that because they're just extraordinary beings as we know, but maybe we don't know. Probably most of us just don't know. We think that these are automatons, and we think that they aren't quite as complex as they really are. And that's what it's about for me. The animal photojournalism, the mission I'm on, 60 countries and all this work. It's really about illuminating the lives of these complex, fascinating individuals and why we should care and why we need to change things. Lastly, all of this work is available. I have thousands of images and video on this archive, which is free for anybody to use. So whatever you're campaigning, storytelling, whether you're a student or a politician or a journalist, you can use the work that I have created in the service of animals, in your service of animals. And that's at We Animals Archive. And there are the websites for the media agency that we've built. Used to be just me with a camera, but now there's 10 of us and lots of volunteers and contributors and donors. And so yeah, the We Animals Project is now weanimalsmedia.org, and that's the archive. I would love for you all to use it. And I will stop sharing my screen, and that is it.
That's amazing, Jo-Anne. Thank you so much. And gosh, it's hard to follow that. Very hard to follow that. All right, so I'm going to present just a little bit on the Animal Museum and some of the work that I've been doing. Oh, can I do this one? Yeah. All right, can everyone see that? Yes, okay, cool. So I'm not an artist, right? I'm on the other side of the fence of this conversation. I have worked in the nonprofit sector all my life, and now more exclusively with arts administration. So for about 10 years of my life, I dedicated my time, my passion, my energy to creating the world's first animal protection museum. And that closed a couple years ago, and I have all sorts of emotions about that, but I still work in the arts, and I still weave as much animal advocacy as I can into what I do now. But the reason why I started the Animal Museum is because there was no museum for our movement. Every other social justice effort had either its own museum or it had representation in the museum sector. So for example, if you're walking on the National Mall and you walk into the American History Museum, you'll see the lunch counter from the 1960s and those sit-in protests, and you'll see buttons from, labor campaigns, but really there is nothing regarding animals. And our movement started right around the same time as all these other social justice efforts. And in fact, Jo-Anne, I loved what you said about, or Dr. Capaldo's quote, it's all interrelated. And these activists even back then saw that too. So for example, down here at the left-hand side of the screen is Caroline Earl White. She is my mentor. She doesn't know it because she's dead, right? But, she started the first the first humane society in the United States. And she also started the first anti-vivisection organization, but she also worked on, foster youth issues and child welfare issues, and you name it, she was doing it. So I have to say, this was like an undocumented history that needed to get presented, shared, and celebrated. We started as an online and pop-up museum, and then in 2013 we opened our first venue in East Hollywood. So this is that. And I spent all day prepping for this, and I didn't remember how much we did and how much women were a part of our subject matter and the very fabric of our organization's inner workings. And my whole kind of management philosophy is to really just give people the space to do what they want to do. So Uncooped was one of our first exhibits, and I really handed that over to L.A. Watson and a little committee of people to develop this. So looking at the cultural associations of chickens and how that affects our own mentality today, words matter. So it was just really fascinating, and getting into the cultural ephemera that you could see. It's hard to tell on some of these objects, but art was a very important part of what we did. The bottom left, you'll see Catherine Eddy's sound installation. You'll see L.A. Watson's illustrations on the bottom right. But we tried to be pretty diverse in what we did. This is another exhibit called My Dog is My Home, which looked at the experience of homeless families, interspecies homeless families on the streets of LA. We followed the lives of 4 homeless families for a year. It was a video exhibit largely. The curator is Christine Kim. She's on the right-hand side in the middle. But again, you know, I was thinking about that today. I was like, except my boyfriend who curated one show, like it was all women, and I loved that. And it was very representative of our movement because it is women-led. This is the one my boyfriend curated, right? So it's like nice and fluffy. Raphael is down there in the middle. And again, all women artists that we featured from Santa Barbara. And what I liked is that, you know, in the midst of all this heavy subject matter that we were dealing with, we could also appreciate the bond that we have with animals in, you know, a myriad of ways. And this was a lighthearted showing of that. Of course, Jo-Anne, we did your, I think, first solo exhibition at the museum. And there's Moby and my dog and, you know, Martin Rowe. I mean, it was needed, right? This was an incredibly popular, little, tiny, always packed space. And I love that we could build that sense of community and an artistic venue to show art and just have a different way to communicate, right? Like I had been in animal advocacy since I was in high school, and it was always like, go protest, you know, go hold a sign, read a book, watch a documentary. But this was such a new medium. And I found it really refreshing, and I think a lot of other people did too. And then we had to grow. I had a board member who has said, you know, we have to move to downtown. We have to be prime and center. So this was in the heart of the arts district in downtown LA. It was close to 6,000 square feet. I think we opened this in 2015. And these were some of the exhibits. We got a little more high tech. I loved this 360 installation that we did about entanglement and providing that sense of what it's like for marine animals to be in today's oceans. It's not pretty, but also focusing on solutions. So for example, bottom left-hand photo, you'll see some sunglasses. These are all reclaimed materials from the ocean that are now turned into usable products in today's society. On the top right, I don't know if you can see, there's a little brick I'm pointing to in front of a bunch of school children. But there's this one company that is, you know, consolidating all this plastics from the oceans and turning it into literally building blocks in developing countries as housing units. So I loved that, right? Yes, we're talking about heavy subject matter, but there are solutions and there's positivity and inspiration. And then getting back to the female subject matter, I was like, damn, we were on such a roll towards the end of this endeavor. Crazy cat ladies. I know there is a lot of innuendo about that, but it was really a term that we were trying to take back and reclaim. Cat ladies have existed forever, right? As long as cats have been hanging out, like there have been cat ladies. And obviously I can't provide everything in just a couple of images, but, you know, we wanted to grab people with this, you know, interactive cat lady living room, but also start busting those myths. So you have Jackson Galaxy from My Cat from Hell in the top right, you know, and it's not just women, right? There are men who are, you know, fanatics about cats. But as you progress through the exhibit, you learned, like, you took a historical overview of cat ladies. So think about the Egyptians, right? And Bastet, and those, there's always been all these goddesses who have an association with cats, and not just in Egypt, all over the world. Scotland has a very famous one as well. Her name eclipses me. But then you think about witches and their association with cats. And then you move forward to today's iteration of the cat lady. And it's, you know, a career woman who's too busy really to keep down a significant other, but she has her cat. But what is so interesting about all these iterations of cat ladies is that they're independent women. They're like fiercely just, I don't care what society says, I'm doing my thing. And usually it has such a great reward for the feline species. So anyways, that's Crazy Cat Ladies, love it. And I will say, like, you learned how to do TNR on a cat. Like, it was very interactive and educational. I'll just keep going. And then we did the Sexual Politics of Meat exhibition. And I thought this was phenomenal. Again, giving over our space to Art Animal Effect to just do what they do. And the work was extraordinary. Carol Adams came out, she did her Sexual Politics of Meat slideshow. but just amazing. So these were some of the pieces, and international. I have to say, these women were incredibly fierce. I think we had 16 women artists from all over the world. The bottom right is Lynn Mawson from Australia. So she flew in to do this installation, just incredible. Janell's work is on the bottom left, L.A. Watson, top right. I can't remember, I think it was Mary's was top left. I can't remember, but we ended up getting flies. Those are actual like chicken bones someone got from somewhere. And that became a whole humane ethical conversation. But anyways, oh, and then I just wanted to iterate that this was more than a museum. You know, I think with anyone on this thread panel, this is more than a calling. You want your work to have impact. So beyond the exhibitions and that real-time, you know, experience that people had in a museum, we were doing chicken adoptions. That's the top center. We did rat adoptions, dog adoptions, cat adoptions. The bottom center was from our Skid Row service fair. So as part of the My Dog is My Home exhibit, we did a real service fair for interspecies families, and we got not just veterinary care for the animals, but medical care for the humans. They all got food, supplies, grooming, like they all got baths, and you know, like the full 9 yards. Bottom right, we did, this was an elephant exhibit that we did. It was an ivory crush, so that got some really great media. We did a tofurkey trot with about 1,000 attendees every year. So really, it was a remarkable experience, and you know, I hope this opened opportunities for our artists that we showed. And I think I'll just stop there because I would love to leave enough time for Q&A. Yay. All right, so we have some great questions in, oh wait, before we do that, I've been tasked with something else. I know, I'm going. I have to find this thing. All right.
While looking for something, I will say that we also featured Carolyn in the Unbound project. Yeah, we interviewed you about the museum, and we were so pleased to have you included in that group of people.
I was very honored to be included. I love this Love Fest. It's great. So now I am supposed to talk about the Artists for Ahimsa Award. In 2018, Compassion Arts created an annual award called the Artists for Ahimsa Award to bring attention to the work of individuals in the arts using their creativity for animal advocacy. There are 3 components to the award. Oh, hold on a second. 1, that the artist is dedicated to nonviolence and compassionate living. 2, that the artist's work is connected to helping animals directly in some way and or advancing vegan peace. 3, that the artist's work can be a resource for others. So far to date, our Artists for Ahimsa honorees include this year's 2020 artist Cyrus Mejia for his work as creator of Raven's Heart Gallery and co-founder of Best Friend Sanctuary. The 2018 honoree Allison Argo for her work as multiple Emmy Award-winning filmmaker of Argo films and the Last Pig documentary. And our 2019 honoree photographer Jo-Anne McArthur for her dedicated, unflinching advocacy for animals through powerful and thought-provoking photojournalism, and for her projects, We Animals Media and the Unbound Project. The way we pay tribute to honorees is that we feature their work in Compassion Arts Festival and give each individual an Artist for Ahimsa award painting that has been made especially for them about their work for animals that is created and contributed by artist Jane O'Hara. Due to circumstances that made it impossible for us to give Jo-Anne McArthur her 2019 award painting last year, we are happy to be able to present Jo-Anne McArthur with her Artist for Ahimsa award today. With this painting created by Jane O'Hara titled The Last Picture. With deep gratitude and respect for Jo-Anne McArthur, thank you for your courage and artistry for compassion and advocacy for animals, and for your power of example in inspiring others. And I want to give this over to Jane to talk about her piece. You're muted, Chica.
Muted. I'm not muted anymore. It is, as I said earlier, a real honor to be able to do these Ahimsa Award paintings. This is my second one, and it was tough, you know, because I couldn't really focus on any particular animal because Jo-Anne loves and is there and helping every animal that you can think of. So I was wondering how to approach it. And then I realized, wouldn't it be great to just show them all free? And so I put it within the lens of her, I think, early or favorite camera, the Nikon D4S. And yeah, so I just have the animals all running away, and I call this the last picture because it will be the last picture you ever have to take, Jo-Anne. Although you could take some pictures beyond that, that would be very fun. Anyways, don't have much more else to say except for it was a true joy to do this because I certainly love and appreciate Jo-Anne and everything she does.
It's such a beautiful painting. Oh my gosh. And of course I'm tearing up because it's not, you know, I see a lot of terrible things, and but that's not what makes me cry. It's the happiness. I guess a lot of people are like that, isn't it? Like, I don't know, you see joy and it brings tears to your eyes, because this is the world that we want right here.
Mhm.
I was photographing the Australian bushfires this year, and I didn't shed a tear until I got to a sanctuary where there were little joeys with their burned legs taped up. They were there convalescing, and they'd come over and sniff at me, and one of them wanted to get on my lap, and I just had a really good cry.
Mm.
But thank you for the award, and I'm not going to say much. It's just such an honor. And Jane, the effort that you went to, really, I mean, this is about you. this is a beautiful, beautiful gift that you must have just spent so much time and thought working on. I know you did.
Well, it was a joy.
It's a joy and honor to receive it. Ellie, thank you for thinking of me for this. And
Oh, thank you.
yeah, I will just say I will continue to do my best for animals, and I so appreciate that you see that I do that. And but I'm in for the long run.
I'll put
Thank
it
you
in
so
the
much. What's that?
Put it in the mail.
Is it going to be safe in the mail?
Yeah, sure.
Lots of packaging and insurance and traceability.
You bet.
Oh my gosh. Well, it's just a beautiful painting. I hope you're all enjoying looking at it. I'm going to enjoy having it up in a pride of place in my home.
Great.
Thank you, Jo-Anne.
Thank you.
So we have a bunch of questions from the audience, but before we do, Jo-Anne, you had a really great question that I would love to ask. And talking with that image on our screen of joy and animals just being free and unobstructed, I would love to pose to the panelists, you know, what are the joys of doing your work? What are some of the victories that you have seen in your art?
I have just answered it, like with the joeys in Australia. So I'm going to turn it over to the others.
I think Janell might not, I don't know if she's on. I don't know if she's having trouble with her service. She and I have the same provider.
I can know.
Jane, any victories or joys or, you know,
Yeah,
great stories?
So many. I mean, I always feel like if I can, you know, get a reaction out of people, it's amazing. And I've even had some people who I feel I might have influenced with my work of compassion building to become vegan, or to work towards that goal, to have that feeling. And that just feels amazing. You know, I do artwork because I'm really not a debater. I'm not out in the front lines. I'm not great at those things. So when I can see, it's usually a subtle thing, but I do notice that I get a reaction, and I love that.
Oops, I muted myself. Janell, did you hear that question about the victories or joys of your work? Success stories about the projects you've been working on?
Can you hear me?
Sort of.
This is like an art installation of its own. Frozen Zoom video. I love it.
Did you see that Saturday Night Live? Anyway.
Okay, well, Yeah, I keep going.
You know, someone chimed in on the Q&A and said if maybe you turned off your video, it might not slow down your feed so much. So you can try that too. But I want to get to some of these questions. Malaya asks, have you experienced any challenges with having your artwork displayed in museums and galleries because of your anti-speciesist message? Like, I clearly opened the door, but like, I'm sure other venues may not be so receptive to your work. Have you all experienced that?
Well, it's not something that people necessarily tell you, but I suspect it sometimes. But yeah, I have felt sometimes that the subject matter is, you know, could be approaching the person who's running the show or the gallery or the museum themselves. You know, it's just, I don't know. It's hard to say. I was looking forward to showing at the museum, at the Animal Museum. That was a obvious welcome spot. And I do show work at the William Scott Gallery in Provincetown, and he's very, very supportive and embracing of my work. So yeah, it's sort of a mixed bag, I guess.
I think it's exciting that things are changing quickly right now. Media galleries are inherently quite conservative. They're worried about their audiences and how things will, you know, play out and what support they will lose if they put controversial animal work. And it's controversial because it's so close to home for everyone. You know, the work that we do raises a mirror and makes us feel defensive, and it's uncomfortable for a lot of people. And so the curators often don't want to do that, but it's changing. I mean, especially with the pandemic now, like how much more evidence do we need? So we've got climate fires, and climate change is in part because of pollution caused by factory farming and deforestation. And then we have the pandemic, which, you know, all of these zoonotic diseases are caused by us and animal use. And now we have, you know, Denmark is a graveyard of 15 million mink because of COVID-19 as well. And so how much longer can media and anyone publishing our work turn away from this? And they really can't anymore. I mean, this is now a mainstream part of the conversation, and it's our job as artists to, you know, to push the envelope and to get the work out there. And things, I think, are becoming easier now to do that. Now that the apocalypse is here, they're publishing our work. Too late.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Yeah, I was doing some research before the panel, you know, and there's so many museums that just like run and hide when they hear about animal rights, or even if they want to push the envelope by putting actual animals within the gallery, right? And there's, you know, all these examples of live animals being subjected as, you know, art installations. And so it's just really interesting the lengths that museums will go to either defend their curatorial choices or to extend that olive branch and invite, you know, people on the other side of the fence to exhibit their work. So that was a great question. And I think that's going to change. And Jo-Anne, I think you're right. This summer has really challenged, I think, the art world to really rethink their priorities and the amount of exhibition time they're going to give to, you know, communities of color or subject matter that just really doesn't get that limelight. So great question. Great question. There's a couple questions for Janell, but she is offline. Janell, can you hear me? Janell?
Hello?
Okay,
Can you
perfect.
hear me?
Yes, I have a question for you. Where did that question go? Someone was asking about your woodcuts and, you know, what happens, where did it go? What is your process of installing the woodcuts? And do you do it in the cloak of night? And how long does it take you to install?
Oh, I do it either very late at night or early in the morning. And I've actually seen transport trucks bringing animals in the morning, and often they're just dropped off in some pretty horrible conditions. But I use wheat paste, and I wear black, and I just put them up quickly and run away. And then I go back later and take the photograph.
Cool. And then we have another question, and this one's kind of interesting. This is a panel about, a women's perspective as well, and that lens that we use. Artwork can be a powerful tool for helping humans understand that speciesism is a form of oppression. What are your experiences with displaying artwork in public? I don't know, this Q&A thing is like going up and down, so I'm like merging questions. As a powerful tool for helping humans understand that speciesism is a form of oppression. What are your experiences with displaying artwork in public you have created on how sexism and speciesism intersect? Any comments on that? I mean, there are whole textbooks written on this subject, so it's hard to comment in just a couple of minutes, but maybe through that artistic lens, right? Janell, I know you help curate SPOM, and like that's all about that topic.
Yeah, well, I mean, our work is, all of our work is, we consider ourselves feminists, and so we work through a feminist trajectory with, and using animal advocacy as one of our main objectives is to explore and experiment with the idea of animal imagery. I'm not sure if I got the entire question because it was kind of going in and out, but so I'm not really sure how I'm answering this correctly.
It's okay. Any other takers? Sexism, speciesism, art?
Just that there are a lot of isms that overlap, and that we can make all of them visible by showing them together. I mean, animal rights is, and speciesism is my focus, but that doesn't exist in a bubble. It overlaps with human rights. I've met a lot of people working in farms that don't want to be there. It's terrible conditions, and environmental rights, and all sorts of rights. And I think that we should continue to show that they are entwined. And again, that comes back to art, and that's what we do. Is making visible and making connections.
You know what I thought was interesting when I was doing all my research on the beginnings of animal protection was just how women who started all these organizations, who ran the campaigns, they used their position in society as justification to do animal work. So because we are caring and we're in charge of children and children's welfare, that they could create these societies, and a lot of them were intersected. Animal protection and child welfare. You found those all over the country. It was the same organization. So I love that they called it social feminism. There's something about an envelope in that too, but I'm not an academic, but I love that too. And I think that's really fascinating. And we're kind of, on those shoulders, right? Kind of the next chapter moving on. Do you have questions for each other before I take some more audience questions? So shy. All right. All right. So Andrea asks, Jo-Anne, thank you for your work making the animals visible. What was happening in the photograph of the elephant underwater?
Yeah, that's a performance, and it's some kind of zoo. And I find that image so incredibly striking because this animal is just so far from home. Like this is a 180 to what an elephant should be ever doing, like underwater performing like that. I find it so interesting that the animal is being held there as well. just you see the arm of a man, on the top of the elephant, and what steps were taken in order to render this animal in this condition, willing to perform that way, because willing's not the right word. And it's by Adam Oswald, who has been documenting our use of animals for a very long time. And he lives in Thailand now. He's an Australian. But yeah, it was this, the kind of animal performance that we see done by all sorts of animals in zoos and aquariums and circuses. I also appreciate that image because of all the people taking the photo and having a great time, and that's why people go there, right? And I can appreciate that Adam took that photo, which is like how I took that photo of the capuchin monkey in Ecuador in 1998, which is how I started the slideshow. There I was with a bunch of people taking pictures, and I thought, oh, this is different. The way I see the animal is different, and I see this as wrong. So I feel a real kinship with Adam in his taking of this image, for sure.
Wonderful. We have a question for Jane. Andrea loves your Ahimsa word painting concept, the last picture. She finds it a real challenge adding advocacy clearly into art. Your 50 state paintings pull that off so clearly. What is your process for coming up with your concepts, or do they just pop into your head?
Actually, they pop into my head. And sometimes when I'm in the midst of them, I'm thinking, oh my God, how did I get myself into this? Like the 50 States project. There's a lot of research that goes into that, a lot of, looking for the imagery and coming up with the concept and positive and negative images and funny images. And and then the rendering of everything. They're quite complicated. So although the show is in 2023, I really need to get going faster. But I'd say I'm inspired. There was one thing we got to thinking about, like, who are our inspirations? And a lot of my inspiration is actually from, news items or things I learned through the animal groups, or, Jo-Anne, Janell's work, Carolyn's work, all that. I'm just struck by these stories, and at some point I do just have images and ideas just sort of pop into my mind. I'm not really very eloquent in my description of how that happens, but I guess that's how it happens. Just pops in my head. Thanks for the question.
All the best ideas do. Opinion. Who starts a museum? It just pops in your head. Speaking of inspiration, we had talked about previously on the Zoom prepping for this about your inspirations and some role models or mentors that you might have. Anyone you want to share with our group?
I will. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good. Finally, I feel like I'm going in and out, and I'm missing all the questions. But I guess I would say that I have a lot of inspiration from artists, but also from writers. So artists, I can think of like people like Carol Walker, Kiki Smith, Janet Cardiff, Ellen Gallagher, Lynn Mosen, Sonora Taylor, who's also a fine writer. And then when we talk about writers, I think of people like Carol J. Adams, huge influence, Steve Baker, James Baldwin. I mean, and then there's music. And so there's so many forms that inspire me as an artist. And, so arts, I guess just the arts in general can be incredibly inspirational.
Any other takers?
My vegan artist friend, Matthew Dunn, actually painted this and sent it to me. This is James Baldwin.
Yeah.
And I have him up also an inspiration to me. And Maddie, the artist, is an inspiration to me as well. And he sent this to me recently. I have it up next to my desk. I will also say that my inspirations, two of them, were Jane Goodall and Jill Robinson. Jill Robinson founded Animals Asia, and these are women who are like really out in the field, action oriented. And I'm like that as well. I'm very hands-on. When I see a problem, I'm kind of like, like what can I do? And luckily I can like physically hold the camera and go somewhere. And I really like that about my work. And I think I am that way in part because I looked at these women who are really out there in the world and hands-on and speaking up against practices that were considered normal and acceptable. I know it's not original to say Jane Goodall is your mentor. Like, I almost hate to say it, but like, it's the truth. Since I was a little girl, I looked at her life and I was like, I'm gonna have a life that's really out there, just like she is.
And you're doing it. That's awesome. You know, speaking of Sonora Taylor, we had a question from Chris. Well, it's not a question, as more of a comment. I would like to see something about the relationship between people with disabilities and veganism. I don't know if any of you want to talk about her work. She was included in the Uncooped show a couple of times, but any thoughts about that? Disabilities, veganism, art, women? Just
for me, I have a very personal reference to this. Is my brother is intellectually disabled. He's, as I grew up calling it, mental retardation. And he doesn't speak, probably has the cognitive level or the level of maybe a 2 or a 3-year-old. But being just a year separate from him in age, when he lived at home before he went to an institution, I communicated with him beyond words. And of course, the dogs I mentioned that I grew up with. So I feel that, you know, there is, has been a empathy I've had for those that can't communicate in the way that we're mostly familiar with language. And so I don't know, I think, you know, without having ever really intellectualized it, I think that it informed my future as an artist very much. And I think that, you know, it led me to veganism because, you know, veganism is a way better than any that's so easy to be compassionate and not feed into an operation that basically, you know, profits off of those that cannot communicate, you know, and cannot speak up for themselves. So that's.
Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, we just need more opportunity, I think, for exhibition and showing people's work and supporting artists in this field. We have 1 minute left. Hopefully we can go just a couple minutes over, but I do want to ask you, what's next on the horizon? What's 2021 going to look like for you all?
Well, I just moved and I'm looking forward to doing about 43 more paintings for the State of the Union series. And I don't know, I always look forward to the next Compassion Arts Festival because it's just really one of my big inspirations, actually, which I am eternally grateful to Ellie Sarti for seeking me out at one point. That's all.
Jo-Anne, you were telling us about a mentorship program. I want to hear about that.
Well, yeah. Part of what we're doing at We Animals Media is mentoring the, you know, coming generations of animal photojournalists, and it's why we did this big book where we're giving animal photojournalism a platform. Like, this is a thing, this is a new and important way of doing photography. And so we have, starting next year, a mentorship program. We have a masterclass. Over 300 people have taken it already. It's 8 episodes of, answering all the questions that people ask me. How do I do what I do? How do I cope? What gear do I use? How do you light in difficult situations? And we'll be offering fellowships as well for animal photojournalists. And I'm just going to be keeping on this path and working pretty hard. And also, here's this really cool thing that happened recently. A young woman from Delhi, India, named Ashtha, wrote to me, and she's a young woman, really cool, really confident. And she said, I would be an absolute asset to your team. And I propose that I create a group called We Animals Youth. I was like, what? That's amazing. And, I don't know how to use TikTok, and I don't know how to, communicate through media to 13-year-olds, but she knows how to, and they know how to do it. Why should we try and do it? If we're trying to reach youth, let youth reach youth. And I love the acronym too, WAY. It has a religious tone to it, but We Animals Youth is literally the way forward for us. So, and we'll have a lot of new contributors to the We Animals archive as well. It started with just my work, but by the end of next year, we'll have at least 20 or 30 contributors. So that much more work to offer to the world. So lots going on.
Janell, what's next? Real quick.
Okay, real quick. Well, very recently, Carol J. Adams just published a new edition of The Pornography of Meat by Bloomsbury Academic. And our coalition, along with a lot of other women artists, are featured in it. And particularly in the last chapter, Carol decided to forego her original idea of the chapter and allow us as artists speak and have our artwork to speak for the chapter, which is titled Resistance. So that just happened recently, and we're all very excited. And Susie Gonzalez, who's also in the Compassion Arts Festival this year, is also one of those artists. So we're all happy about that.
That's awesome. Well, I'm so excited for all of you. And I had a couple questions about the Animal Museum, and it's closed and it's not mine anymore. And I don't know what's going to happen, but people keep pestering me to keep going. So we'll see what transpires. But there's other, initiatives coming up. The Vegetarian Museum is now the Vegan Museum, and apparently they're going to open next year in Chicago. So do keep your eyes open. I think these opportunities are just going to keep going. Ellie, one last question. Will this recording be available for people to watch afterwards?
Yes, we hope. That's what we're planning on. We're planning on taking it and editing it, and then I don't know what the timeline will be. Maybe a week or two, and that will be posted. We'll send out a mailing so people will know that it's available on the website. And I just want to say thank you to everybody for a really great event, and for everything you do through your work. And I wish we had time to get to everybody's questions, as I could have been on here for hours and listened to you. And I'll just say, it's really my belief that I really believe traditional forms of protest, traditional forms of advocacy can only go so far. And it is my really firm belief that the arts are like the super highway towards advancing our compassion for animals. And I feel like all of you your work is really representative of that. And thank you so much. And everybody, remember, Donald's poetry is going to be read on Thursday night, so I want you to tune in for that as well.
Wonderful. Well, thank you to our panelists. Thank you to our attendees. We hope you have a lovely evening, and thank you for sharing some time with us tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you, Donald.
Thanks, everyone. It was such a pleasure. Bye.
Bye.